obviously for the data level security, we have to be a lot more precise about how we handle that. Yeah, data element secured, we discussed that. And the roles involved, who are we talking about? How many users are we talking about? Is this a handful of individuals, or are we looking at your entire employee base? Then we need to talk about source. Now, this is where the real complexity gets in. Do you already have this information built out? One of the most common areas that you might have it built out would be in your Infor actor context. So if you built out actor context for your departments, or for your managerial or org structure already, then you have that data already laid out. But sometimes it's not that easy. Like org structure isn't necessarily going to help you for applying workflow security to your buyers, because sometimes you have a buyer that can purchase for more than just one department. They can be proxy buyers. So you need to explore, does the source, if you have the source, and if that source is applicable to your structure. Oftentimes we have customers that have third-party applications that have this data in it. Common ones are perhaps they're using an external HCM system like a Workday or a Cognos or excuse me, UKG. I'm old school. I still call it Cognos. EPSI is a really popular one with our healthcare customers, just because that's a popular budgeting and stat application for the healthcare industry. But if that's stored anywhere in a third-party system, we can go out, utilize that data, and bring it in. But the most important part is maintenance. Wherever you're getting that data from, you need to make sure that you're wrapping it with business processes. And those business processes need to take into consideration onboarding and termination of employees, so that you're effectively assigning the data security at those entry and exit points. That will make your life so much easier. On the front end, there's a lot of administrative work that goes into it, but if you implement these processes and structures around it, then once you push it out there into production, this should, for the most part, in 99% of cases, handle any modifications that have to happen. Okay. So what does this look like in a real-world scenario within EPM? This is your management permission screen within EPM, and this is at the cube level. So you can see here, if you notice, let me get where's my virtual pointer? Yep, here we go. If you notice the scroll bar here, you can see how far across that goes. That's because I've got dozens of roles that could potentially be assigned to dozens of cubes, which in this case, probably you only care about one cube for the majority of us on the call right now, which is the GL tote cube. Nonetheless, it gets a lot more complicated when we start looking at securing a dimension like a chart of account dimension, because now we're looking at thousands of elements that could potentially need to be managed, and you've got dozens of roles, which ends up being millions of permutations of permissions. So this is not tenable to handle in a WYSIWYG interface like this. It's good for if you have a small use case of a few users and maybe just a couple elements that need to be secured, it works. But if not, you're going to have to look at loading this in programmatically. And the way that we've done that is using Application Studio and Application Engine in conjunction with EPM. In conjunction with EPM's data modeling. So this is the technical portion. So those of you that are not technical, pay no attention to the man behind the screen. For those that you are, I will talk through this very quickly. What we do is we create these object assignments. We create the dimensional mapping, and we do that using Application Studio as the interface. That's optional, to be quite honest. We could use any other front end, like we could create LPL, a form within config console or something of that nature. But for the purposes of this client, it worked out well using AppStudio, which then utilizes application engine processes to load that data into an MDAC cube. MDAC stands for multi-dimensional access cube, which basically means it's a cube that you're going to lay on top of your actual cube that has your data, that tells that cube who gets to see what. And that's the process. We put that into a scheduler to go out and pick up the mappings from whatever source was identified on a nightly basis, perhaps, or intraday if necessary, or even on demand. Because if we do this correctly, this is a fairly performative process that shouldn't take too long. And then from there, you then are able to give access to your users. You could theoretically give access to your users to the ad hoc query engine within financial reporting, which is basically wide open. It allows people to go in and look at all the data within the general ledger's totals business class, and you could give that access to anyone, and they would be limited by the security that you identified or defined. All right, so the next one, this one is my favorite, mitigating the protracted change control, right? So we talked about the fact that a minor change to a report could result in, at my current client, it was, they for a while, they only had change control meetings once a month. So if you wanted to go, for instance, on this report here, if you wanted to go and put a space between total used gross sales and total used gross percentage of gross sales, it could potentially take a month to get that change put in place. That's not nice. that's gonna make your end users real upset. So what we do here is we look for a way to be able to apply these row column structure. We look at we look to see if the change that's being requested, is it a one-off request, or is it something that's going to be propagated throughout all the reports? That's the first determination. We need to decide, is this a definition of a new report, or is this a parameterized report? So if you have a expense statement that you need for department A, do you need it for department B also, and C, D, E, and F, or is it just this one department? So is it a new report for a specific department, or is it a report that can be parameterized to be reused by multiple individuals or entities? And then we need to talk about text formatting. Is it level-based, meaning is it that every summary account that's displayed on this report has a bold text and underline for the measures? Or is it completely unpredictable and we have to go case by case, like, no, that line's bolded, that one's not. This one has underline, this one doesn't. These are real real scenarios. Especially with the financial reportings, every CFO brings their own flavor of formatting, and they are typically very specific about it, and it needs to be done, and this is how we can do that more effectively. And then finally, description exceptions. So in a chart of account, you could have something like gross sales, but on the report, you want to show total gross sales on one of your reports, perhaps, but maybe on another one of your reports, you just want gross sales. That's an exception. And so taking all of these instances, the way that we can actually approach this and deal with this is, firstly, by making sure that we're utilizing your alternate reporting hierarchies. So within your FEG, your financial enterprise group, you can define as many of the chart hierarchies as you want. Now, this is a double-edged sword. It can be really great for you and really cut down the amount of development you have to do, or you could end up in having to have a full-time FTE managing all of your alternate reporting hierarchies. So there is a balance. And what I say is, again, is this a one-off report where it has a different format than all your other standard reports, or is this something that needs to be rolled out to a large portion of the reports that you're developing? And if the latter, then we probably want to create an alternate reporting hierarchy. Sometimes we do actually create a reporting hierarchy for a one-off purpose, and that could be just because the logic is very complex, and building that into the report could cause that protracted change control nightmare, or it could be that they know that they're going to make changes really frequently to this report and they don't want to have to go through the change control process to do that. So we push off all of the roll-ups and all the management here, and it's not just the chart of accounts either. It's your all your financial dimensions. It can be your budgets, your projects, everything. Each one of those has the ability to create hierarchies that allow you to roll up your business in various ways. And one thing to keep track of is if you are doing budget allocations, make sure that you're developing your report by selecting the top level of the budget scenario. You can have multiple scenarios, but also you could be posting allocations underneath each of those. And if you're just taking they have something called the original budget, which is just below the top level budget scenario. If you take that original, you're not going to catch your allocations. That's something that burnt me in one instance, so I make sure I call that out. All right. So let's roll on through here. All right. So for the previous example where we have lots of issues with fonts and changing fonts and setting fonts and exemptions and trying not to have to go through a huge change control cycle for that, we created what we call a line formatting widget. And essentially what happens is, let me go back on the screen here. You see on this report here, you've got this little format button here. We enable this for only power users. So we have a special group. And for that special group, typically it would be your corporate finance or your HRIS people, just anyone that had the authority to dictate how the report looks, that is not a report developer. We give them the ability to utilize this button. So when they click on this button, this pop-up appears, and they have the ability to do all of these various set all these various attributes for that, just for that one line. So you can set font weights. The drop-down allows you to set it by description, by the measures that are on the report, or both. You can set borders. You can create borders, top, bottom. You can do double underline. You can set your indent for spacing, and you can append a total, just the word total, to the beginning of a description, or you can flip your sign. This is critical because every organization that I've been in, they all say, oh yes, revenue is a reverse sign, except for this one, or except for that one needs to be also a positive or something of that nature. So you can go in and make those determinations. Now, I realize that there's actually a built-in functionality within FSM to do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every customer uses that functionality. So this is what that allows us to do. And what the result of that is basically no code report modifications. So your power business users can go in and make corporate standard changes for the entire corporation, for the entire user base, just by clicking and saving. It allows them to do font formatting, borders and underlines, sign flipping, line spacing, indentation, appending total. And what that looks like here. So on that previous report that I showed you, what we wanted to do here is we want to put a space between those two lines. We want to give the total use gross sales a bold and underline all the measures in that line. And so simply by setting these few attributes, clicking apply, we are then able to it was a space after the total gross percentage of gross sales, and then
hey Matt, excuse me.
Yeah,
Matt, I've got a question.
Yep.
Are the reports you're talking about using hyperblocks, or are they built line by line?
Thank you. Yes. So you're skipping the good part of the presentation. I will say if I have my choice, I always go with slices. And we will get into specifically why that is here in about 5 slides, I think. Thank you for the question. Appreciate it. All right, pixel perfect PDFs. This one is a really difficult. It's gotten better over the last 2 years actually, but there's still some real struggles here. So you need to be aware. You've got to understand prior to development that the key usage of your report is going to be PDF, and that way you can then develop for it. And some of the key things to understand: is it a multi-paged report? Are we going to merge multiple reports into a report book like a financial report book? In regards to your headers and footers, how do we want to do this? Are the headers is the report header going to be left justified? Is it going to be centered? Is it going to be repeat on every page? Most likely yes to the latter, because all those things will have an impact on how you develop this report. And the formatting in the dashboard versus exported and printed, is it the same? Is there any variation there? And then identifying printed versus non-printed elements. So on the report versus the dedicated page, and any buttons or pagination controls that you might need to suppress when exported to PDF. All right. So what we do here in the that's interesting. That was a duplicate slide. Here we go. All right. So firstly, controlling visible objects. We need to understand and utilize horizontal, vertical positioning of any of the objects. Where that is basically anything like an image or a text box or a drop down or anything of that nature. You have the ability to set it as an independent of the cells. Once you've done that, you can choose whether you're doing it based on the visible area or the window. And when exporting to PDF, this is going to be critical. It's going to have a major impact on you, especially on the vertical. As you can see there, you can set it to the visible, to the window, the header, footer, or just the data area. So working with these settings is going to be critical to getting that PDF exported the way that you're going to want it. And then utilizing the current print mode variable to understand what the state is. There's more options here than what I'm showing with this, but this one is a kind of a catch-all. It'll tell you it's being exported, whether it's exported to PowerPoint, PDF, or Excel. You can also explicitly say, if this is being exported to PDF. All right, then data granularity and data refresh. So we need to understand our data source options. So let's keep in mind that the tote in GL tote cube stands for totals. There are no transactions available in the GL totals cube. We do have access to DataLake queries, though keep in mind that's pulling out unstructured data, and so the performance could be questionable. But it does give us access to columnar data sets, which are slightly more performative. We also have the ability to do custom data modeling within EPM. So we can utilize the staging database, which is a SQL Server Azure database. So we can load data into that staging database. For instance, if you were wanting to solve this problem right here, you may be able to utilize this. I'm not saying that you should go and take your general ledger transaction details business class and dump it into the staging database. That would probably not end well for you. But there are options for you to utilize that to close some gaps that you might have in your reporting. And then additionally, this is a lot more complex, but if you wanted to get into full star schema data modeling, loading into your own custom OLAP cubes, that is available. The best way to do that is with Application Engine, though there is some capabilities within EPM to do that via the interface. I won't spend too much time on this because this is a pretty basic one. It's just defining the difference between a refresh and reload on the GL cube. But the QR code there will give you all the specific details about what triggers a refresh, when you need to reload, and what the difference of the two is. Essentially, when your financial enterprise group changes, you've got to do a reload to get that data in. If it's just new transactions, refresh will get those. All right, data lake connection with Application Studio. So we have the ability to connect directly to the data lake from Application Studio. It starts by creating a connection in EPM that says, go ahead and use the Infor data lake. You then need to set it up and tell it to show it in Application Studio and perhaps Application Engine if you're using that. And then from there, you can pop open AppStudio and you can start querying directly against your business classes and any rep sets that are available there. The downside is it's really slow. Just not the data retrieval, although that can be slow as well, depending on what kind of data you're going after. But writing the queries here in AppStudio is very slow. So I highly recommend just skip this portion altogether and go over to Data Fabric, jump into Compass here. Compass is a lot better. It has what do you call it? IntelliType or type ahead. It's got your the object browser is a lot quicker than the one in AppStudio. Create your and you can run the query and test it and make sure you're getting the data you want. You grab it and then you can bring it right back and paste it into this query window here, and then start setting your parameters and other relevant details for it. Again, you got to be careful on how much data you're trying to pull across. For those of you that have used Compass, you know it's not a data extract tool. The more you can filter down these queries, the better. So just keep that in mind. All right, so custom data marts, we won't talk too much about that either, but it is there, it's available. We can utilize the Ion APIs. We can load these data models using Application Engine, which is probably the better way to do it if you're going to do this level of data modeling and customizations. Also, won't spend too much time on this, but just to keep this on the horizon is coming the Infor Data Warehouse. We're currently in early adopter phase with one of our customers. It essentially is going to allow us to do all that data modeling in Data Fabric, using pipeline and data streaming to get data out of the DataLake, or I believe in certain cases we can go directly to the individual applications. We're still in a discovery phase on that, but once that is in play, it will be a lot easier to create those custom data areas that you can then report off of using AppStudio, or actually you can use Burst as well, which is nice to be able to have a common data source to use between these different tool sets. So that is coming in the future, though I don't think anyone can put in writing exactly when that will be, but it is in early adopters phase right now. All right, so to the question that occurred before about the slices versus hyperblocks. So let's get into that. It all comes down to performance, right? The Burst Designer and Burst Visualizer has a limitation of 50,000 records. The GL Ad Hoc Report Designer is based on Burst architecture, so similar limitations. Hyperblocks are not optimal, but they are compatible with relational data sources, whereas slices are not. Slices is specifically a cached portion. It's a slice of a cube. And so in those cases where you're looking to use Application Studio for larger record sets, you're probably still going to have to use hyperblocks, and you'll need to be very surgical about the data that you're putting in there. I haven't tested the limits of hyperblocks in a while, maybe 5 years ago. I think once you got somewhere around 500,000 records, it really started tanking. So I don't think you need to be pulling 500,000 records into your reports, but it certainly is an option for the larger record sets, should it be necessary. Slices are specific to OLAP, and they're very much quicker. I've seen exponentially better performance with using OLAP, using slices over hyperblocks at all of my customers across the board. Starting to use slices can be a little daunting. Might be a little confusing, but I promise you, spend 30 minutes and you won't have a problem. I don't mind. I will walk you through in 30 minutes, free of charge, how to use a slice, the best practices. Once you get the hang of it, it's much easier than hyperblocks. You don't have the best part of all is the zero suppression. With hyperblocks, zero suppression is an absolute pain, and you have to copy the data areas, and you have to make sure you're in sync if you have multiple hyperblocks, and the references get all messed up. And I won't do it if it's my very last resort. So I love the zero suppression, being able to programmatically turn it on and off. Obviously, you have that with hyperblocks. That's not unique, but it works a little different. And just keep in mind that it's not a Boolean operator like the hyperblocks are. It is. They have about 5 different options, and it's documented in the Infor docs what those operators are. But the centralized logic for custom calcs, that's this portion over here. I like that as well. I'll oftentimes use this just to easily be able to rename my columns, because oftentimes when you do your columns and you make selections, it comes back with a non-friendly description. And so just to avoid having to hide the header for the column and then manually type in a header for it, I'll do it as a calculated element with the friendly name using the same referential member that I used that I was going to use before, and then I don't have to do that extra work. Keep in mind there's a limit of 15 segments. I've only ever run into that limit one time. What that means is kind of with the row section here, you see, and the column section here, you can create multiple segments. That's kind of like, think of it as groups. It's a little more complex than that, but think of it as groups. You can only create the 15 groups. But yeah, it's very rare that I've ever had to find a workaround for that.
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
Arnie wants to know, how do we sign up for that Slice demo service?
Send me an email. Anytime. Yeah, I don't mind it at all. My contact information here is on the last slide, and I love talking shop. So you guys hit me up anytime you want. All right, let's see here. Right, and keep this in mind that it is cached after the first run. So the first run might be a little slower for your end users. Just ensure, you can tell them try running again, and maybe it'll be a little bit faster if it is running slower. But do be aware, we have instances of what I call the ghost in the machine. A lot because of the caching. When you're doing a lot of iterative development changes with your end users, sometimes I've noticed that they will not see the changes that were made, and it takes a little bit to shake it loose, like a log out, clearing cache, in the worst case scenarios, deleting the implicit user in EPM. Though I highly recommend you understand exactly what that means, because there are some repercussions from doing that. But because of the cached nature of slices, it can kind of hold on to old values that aren't really there when you're doing a lot of change, check in, have the end user test kind of stuff. So just be aware. You may not be going crazy. It may be the system. All right. So bursting and delivery, as we discussed, this was a big component of loss in business intelligence. So a lot of those customers are asking, where is that? There isn't a great solution. We have done this using report books to aggregate the reports that need to be delivered, using App Engine to deliver via email or save to a shared folder, and then leveraging the data level security setup that we talked about before. It is not to be taken lightly, but it is much more complex, and there's a lot more features available than you have in any of the other options, be it Burst Designer or IPA flows, perhaps. You've got a lot more control over how things look and how you filter on your data. Okay, we're getting to the end here. I know we're at 54 minutes. We got started a little late here. I apologize, but I'll wrap this up here. So saving and sharing, this one is a big one. One question I always get when I do the orientation for financial reporting, and I show the things like the ad hoc query dashboard or the delivered reports. They ask, can I save this and share? Can I create this ad hoc query and then share it with someone in my organization? And unfortunately, the answer is no. And so that got us thinking, well, this shouldn't be too difficult to do. Famous last words. But essentially giving ability to save parameters on custom reports or save specific filters, and then be able to share it with colleagues. So what we've done is we've given the ability to save a report and then toggle your saved filters. So what you might see here is you want to save a number of dimensions, but not two others. So if you're jumping between from one report to another report, you may want to retain your company, your department, your location, but you don't want to save the date, the month, because next month you want to come back and look at that same report, but you wanted to use the current month that you're already looking at. So this gives them the ability to say, yes, use this one, yes, use this one, no, not that one, no, not that one, save it off, and then you can actually share this with your colleagues, so that they don't have to go in and hunt and peck for whatever data they're looking for. All right, and the final struggle that a lot of our customers come up against is development resources. Who can help them, whether it's hiring W-2s or just finding competent development resources to help. So a couple things to help out there. There is the Infor developers community. There's not a whole lot of activity there. I'm quite active there, so you'll always find me on there. And if you post a question, I will most likely be ready and willing to answer it. But I think over time that should get a little bit more reliable of a source. docs.infor.com/DEPM will get you to all the documentation for developers, admins, end users, and everything in between. And then finally, you can always come to us, of course. Like I said, I don't mind spending 30 minutes with you to show you how to use a slice if you've been struggling with hyperblocks for a long time. That's what it took for me to come over to the dark side on slices, and I don't mind passing that on. Oh, I had one. That was out of order. But this is if you need to get to this help stock, this is the location when you're in financial reporting through the browser. And then if you're in AppStudio, you can pretty much right click on anything, and there'll be a help context menu that you can use to get you to those docs. Okay, so that is the presentation. Thanks to Work Out Loud for the platform. Please follow us on our group there if you have a moment. Love to get any feedback on this. This is a brand new presentation, and would love to hear your thoughts on it. Additionally, we'll be out at the Western user group in Seattle at the end of this month, in Dallas, for the Infor Mid-South user group. I'm probably getting that wrong. And then Southwest. Thank you. Southwest, and then the Midwest is in Nashville on the 24th of October, and then of course TechX in Orlando at the end of October. So feel free to come out and see us, swing by, say hey. If you have any specific questions, I've got plenty of time. I know we're at time, so if you need to drop, that's fine. But if you've got any specific questions, feel free to reach out. And thank you all for joining us today.